Hello ladies and gents, welcome. We're gonna do a deep dive comparing the best SMGs in Warzone Season 3 because I've just seen a lot of misinformation out there on different creators and YouTubers trying to claim what's the best SMG and just not really understanding the difference in these. So we're gonna get in and kind of clear that up today. Now the good thing is there's probably 4 to 5 different SMGs that are all potentially top tier, and it just depends on what you want in SMG based off your playstyle, your skill level, and also what other gun you're pairing it with, like an AR or a sniper. So one way that we can very quickly get a quick glance of what is the time to kill or how fast you can down an enemy is through a tool called the weighted TTK comparison that we have on our website, ggs.ai. There's tons of loadouts on here you guys can check out for yourself, lots of very powerful stats that you can do. But basically this is taking a bunch of data, the damages, the TTKs, ranges, recoil, all that, and it's trying to spit out one number of what's the TTK you're most likely going to achieve. You're gonna see the compact, it is the clear number 1 here, and then kind of the 2 through 5 here, they're pretty close here, only about a 20 millisecond difference between these, and then the Jackal's kind of at the bottom. But to really fully understand this and really understand which SMG you wanna pick, we need to do a little bit of a deeper dive in the different TTKs that you can achieve, because you're not always gonna get that same time to kill with a gun depending on where you hit. And so this is where a tool like the average time to kill is much more valuable than just looking at like a chest TTK or a combination TTK. So what this is doing is it's taking basically the most probable time to kills, and it's based off how likely you are to achieve each one and then giving you an average. So as an example, the Compact 92, it's the fastest TTK SMG in the game. It's got a TTK that you can achieve if you hit all chest shots of 495 milliseconds, crazy fast. But if you only miss one of those chest shots and you end up hitting them in the stomach or the leg, you get this much slower TTK of 550. Now that is still much faster compared to a lot of these other SMGs, which is why overall its average TTK is still very fast, and it's overall one of the best SMGs right now. Whereas other SMGs, for example, like the PPSH, you're always going to get the same TTK no matter what, no matter where you hit, whether you hit them in the chest or in the toe. Now, yes, technically you could hit all headshots and that would be faster, but the chances of that are extremely low, so we don't normally factor those in too much. Now, I'm on TrueGameData.com and I'm looking at the combination TTK of just a few SMGs here, and I want to explain why some people I think are getting kind of the meta wrong is because they're just looking at this and they're not going into depth. So this is combination TTK. This is not average TTK. This is only going to give you one TTK. It's not averaging different ones. And it's saying based off these percentages of where you're hitting your shot, so 20% to the stomach, 15% to the head, etc., this is the TTK you're going to get. Obviously, this is not always going to happen though. So based off this, you look at a gun like the C9 in red and they're like, oh, a 574 millisecond TTK. That's really good. It's only about 24 milliseconds slower than the compact. Therefore, the C9, it's got low recoil. It must be a top meta SMG. But if I go up and I use his shot to kill calculator, you can see here that if I hit just 2 shots to the stomach or legs, now I get this way slower TTK of 656. And when you're playing against high skill, sweaty players and they're sliding and diving around and stuff, the chances of you hitting all chest shots are not very high, and chances of you hitting just 2 stomach shots are very high. And then you get this much slower TTK of 656, which isn't that good. So again, when we go back and we look at the average TTK, you're gonna see the C9's actually near the bottom of the list when it comes to this, and that's why the C9, although yes, it's got super low recoil, it's got great irons, it's still very good, it may not actually be the best one. And guns like the PPSH has a way faster TTK at all times. So to quickly go through and explain the rest of this, if you're a high school player, the compact is probably the best SMG in the game as long as you're not sniping. I would not run it as a sniper support because it has meh recoil. It's pretty hard to use. But then there's the AK, which has insane damage range because it's an assault rifle. You're almost always going to achieve this faster TTK, but the one con to it is it has a little bit slower handling. I think the PPSH is probably the #1 most underrated SMG out of all of these. Its only downsides is, yes, its damage range is so-so at 11.6. And by the way, these are with no attachments, so we can make these longer if we add things like, the reinforced barrel and whatnot. The recoils, it's okay on the PPSH. Some of their downsides, it has a slower reload and has a lot of muzzle flash if you don't use a suppressor. The SOG is also another one that I think people are completely sleeping on because it has a pretty high probability of getting this faster TTK. You have to hit 2 stomach leg shots. Still, it's very possible to get a slower one, but even the slower TTK is still 594, which is extremely good, which is why it has the 4th fastest average TTK. The Jackal it has a very good fast TTK, but because it's so easy to get the slower one and the recoil is just meh, I don't think it's worth using over a gun like the SOG or PPSH. The KSV though, it's extremely consistent. You're always gonna get that same TTK. It's got good recoil and it's got good range. So I think as a more versatile option, the KSV or as a sniper support is also great. Now, I'm not dogging on the C9. I still think it's a contender for a top SMG, but if you are a lower skilled player and you're not hitting those high damage areas, it all of a sudden becomes kind of meh. But the C9, it is super easy to use with the best irons in a super low recoil. And then just the Tonto and PP919, I just don't think they're worth using. It's very easy to achieve that slower TTK. They do have great range and there is potential as a sniper support and very low recoil on both of these, but man, that Tonto just has a crazy slow fire rate. So if you miss one bullet, it really makes it feel like crap. Now let's go and explain some loadouts for these, but also recommend what guns you should be pairing these SMGs with based on their strengths and weaknesses. So for the compact, this is going to be the best SMG for aggressive players, especially if you're high skilled and especially in those very close quarters fights. Just nothing is going to beat it. Because this one has a lot of recoil, I definitely like to go compensator and not run a suppressor on this. Barrel, you can go reinforced or long barrel, but I'm kind of leaning towards a long barrel specifically on the compact because I don't need that higher bullet velocity because I'm almost never going to use this gun beyond about like 15 to 20 meters. Now the compact is weird for the underbarrel. I would always go Ranger foregrip on this one because normally the vertical foregrip gives more recoil control to the Ranger, but for some reason on the compact, the Ranger gives just as much and you get a sprinting speed buff. Then we're going to extended mag 3, and for the rear grip, I'm normally going to go with the ergonomic. This is going to speed up our aim down sight speed the most, which because of how you can slide while shooting now, sprintifire is not as important. So if you're utilizing good movement and you're sliding and aiming, ergonomic is always going to be better. However, if you're a little bit more of a casual player and you're just running around and you need to be able to just pull your gun down quickly, then the CQB grip might be better. I will also say if you want more of a movement build, you can take off the barrel or the muzzle if you're really high skilled, and then you can add a stock. Personally, I love the infiltrator stock, which gives it that aim walking movement speed or strafe speed, but no stock or balance stock are also great options for overall movement. And then if you have the ability to go gunfighter, you can of course add an optic, that stock, and then you can go a fire mod like recoil springs for even better recoil control. As far as pairing this with, I think this is hands down best to pair with the AMAX, which is another high skilled, aggressive type assault rifle, because you are going to dominate at close to mid range with this gun. So for Rebirth Island, this right here is an insanely good setup. Next, we've got the AK, which I like to run this one more as a sniper support, but you can run it as a pure SMG. Pretty similar class setup here. Again, if you want better recoil control, go vertical. I'm only going mag 1 because I don't want to slow myself down, but mag 2 is fine. And then if you don't mind the irons, you can take off that optic and you can either run a muzzle or a fire mod, really whichever you want if you want to make it more of a kind of a pure SMG build. This one I think is hands down by far the best gun to pair with the HDR. I've got a dedicated video on this alone if you want to check that out. And in case you need the HDR build, there you go. Next, we've got the PPSH. I would also say this is a little bit more of a higher skilled player gun, and one reason for that is you really need to use a suppressor, not a compensator, because otherwise it has really bad muzzle flash and you just can't see what you're shooting at. Also, one other downside to the PPSH is that it doesn't have a rear grip. Its stock and rear grips are basically combined into one, so you can't get that faster slide to fire and faster aim down sight speed like the ergonomic grip normally would give. So then in a full loadout, the PPSH tends to end up having a little bit slower aim down sight speed compared to some of the others, but its TTK and just all well-rounded into stats kind of makes up for that. The PPSH you can really pair with anything. It would go well with an AMAX. I think with a Grau would be a really good kind of all around well-rounded loadout. I probably would not recommend it as a sniper support unless maybe like on Rebirth or as a very high skilled level player. The SOG is another one that's crazy underrated, can have some really fast TTKs and great for kind of more aggressive players. I do like to go with the vertical foregrip on this one because this one can have a little bit more wonky like side to side, but in very close ranges, the Ranger foregrip is going to give you better mobility and the recoil is just fine, especially if you're a higher skilled player. This would be another one that you would probably want to pair with an AR and not run as a sniper support. Great with the AMAX, but also fine with like a Grau, Kilo, or other AR. Since the C9 has such low recoil as is, I normally don't run a muzzle at all on this one, and this allows me to run both a rear grip and stock. So I go ergonomic and infiltrator, and then we can go Ranger and get really nice movement speed. And this is just kind of that all around super easy comfort build. But statistically, again, if you miss those high damage areas, the C9 becomes not so good. If you want just like a really easy gun to use, easy loadout, I think pairing the C9 with a gun like the Kilo or the Growl would be a fantastic setup. If you're looking for another sniper support that's a little bit better handling than the AK, then the KSV is probably my go-to. A lot of different ways we can use this. I do prefer to run an optic when I run this as a sniper support. And then again, stick with that vertical foregrip for better recoil control. You could also go monolithic suppressor instead of compensator if you don't mind the recoil to give you even better range. But running the KSV to pair with an AR is also great as well, just for a lot of versatility. And so you could go more of kind of an aggressive kind of movement build here like this. And this one is a ton of fun as well, as long as you don't mind the iron sights. If you want more information on gunfighter loadouts or also for like different assault rifles, snipers, all that good stuff, check out my top season 3 loadouts video. Also got my settings and graphic settings video if you need those. But thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget to subscribe. Come check out a stream here on YouTube and Twitch, and we'll see you in the next one.